Great to be on the webinar today. I'm extremely excited about this discussion. We have Sean Albertson, who has an incredible career in the CX space. He's almost like 30 years in CX, and he worked for leading companies, leading CX at like Charles Schwab, for example. I'm Mike. I'm a co-founder at Kodif, where we codify customer obsession. And I'll let Sean, you can kick it off. Just introduce yourself, and would love to. I'm sure everyone would love to hear about your impressive background.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mike, first off, thanks for having me. Thanks, Coda, for bringing me on. I know we've had some great conversations over the past many months about your product and so forth. So it's really exciting to be here with you. So yeah, Sean Albertson, 30 years of experience, not all of it in CX. I started in on the phones in the very first part of my career, but about 15 years in financial services. Most recently, as you mentioned, wrapping up about 5.5 years running the CX measurement and analytics program at Charles Schwab, but then also about 15 years in telco, all things wireless and internet and even cable. So a little bit of a diverse experience there, but I've done CX now for at least 20 years, and I've always done it. I was building my CX history as it was being created. It was transitioning from customer service to customer experience and surveys and analytics, and then, all of this other new stuff. And I've done it from marketing and finance. I've done it from product and pricing and from technology and digital teams. So I've kind of touched on all the different kind of X's, if you will, you can put together, and definitely know the real importance there. Now, Mike, I got to give you a little hard time. We were talking ahead of time. So your picture does not do you good. I mean, you had kind of the party haircut, long hair, and now you're nice, clean cut. And I just thought I'd share with you in the audience. I also, at least back in college, I had the long hair down past my shoulders. I wanted to be a rock star. Now I just write books about rocks, and I go on stages and talk. So, a little bit of a different version of that. But no, I thought that was kind of funny that you and I both clean up pretty nice.
Yeah, we both have similar backgrounds, right? Long hair, just enjoying life, and now we're polished professional CX guys. So
exactly,
that's why we get along. That's awesome. Yeah, so yeah, I'll just kind of get started on kind of our discussion here. So I know you have an incredible experience with telecom, but also financial services companies, and overseeing like a lot of these CX technologies. Would love to hear kind of like where you see opportunities to improve customer experience, and especially related to, like, at Kodif, we do AI and automation. So would love to hear kind of your thoughts and opportunities there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the future is AI. The future is going to be this new technology, and we all kind of have to embrace it. Now, I work with a lot of financial services, banks, credit unions, et cetera. And our industries we're a little more conservative on a lot of this new technology, and many companies I talk to are a little bit of a wait and see. Others, like Schwab and others, are focused more on, hey, let me use some of this AI to help an agent versus necessarily getting it directly in front of the customer right away, or the client right away, just in case there's some challenges. And what I like to tell organizations that I work with is, AI won't solve your problems overnight, but it'll probably highlight your problems overnight, because so much of what this new technology, your platform and others depend on, is good back-end data. So if you put an agent assist on top of all of your FAQs and articles and training material for agents, and you make that available, what you'll figure out pretty quickly is, where are your, articles out of date? Where are your FAQs wrong? Things of that nature. And so that is one of those reasons why we see a lot of financial services or even BFSI companies really focusing on, maybe agent use cases early, and dipping their toe into the technology through that process. The net result is still improved performance. The agent doesn't have to, move around and try to find the articles. It's presented to them in the context of that conversation. I know that's what Kodif's product does as well. You've got the self-service, but you've also got the agent assist. And I think even more importantly, we'll talk probably more about that later, is the connection between the two. So when the client's interacting with the self-service tools, but then has to go in and talk to an agent or chat with an agent, passing that history in a summary form to say, oh, this is what they were doing, so that the agent receiving it is already a step or two ahead in that conversation, knowing what they're dealing with. And that's a lot of the focus, but or a lot of the opportunity, if you will, to really, leverage this new technology in so many impactful ways. And it's exciting time, scary for a lot of companies, but it's such an exciting time and an opportunity to really explore.
Yeah, definitely. And you touched on something I think is we're really excited about at Kodif is being able to leverage both our agent assistant tools as well as our self-service and kind of bring them back and forth and providing analytics in the background. And I think it was interesting to hear you talk previously about how, like, for example, at these leading financial institutions, you would kind of test out these technologies with agents first before bringing them on to self-service. And I think that's been a lot of the CX teams we deal with. Some people just want to automate and, for example, and they feel comfortable with that. But oftentimes it's easier to start off with agents and have them leverage the technology as well. So would love to hear just from your experience, like how that worked. Did you, like, for example, previously, like when you were within these kind of large financial institutions, for example, were you testing out with kind of agents first, or were you, because it seemed like there was kind of like a gap in between like the first conversation versus kind of actually going to the agents as well. So would love to dive in a little bit deeper there.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the interesting point here is that we and my companies that I work for and so forth, including Schwab, we've been using AI for a very long time. Just not generative, not the current kind of generative component that's come out from all from the kind of the chat GPT perspective. But we've been testing and using, and I know a lot of organizations been a lot listening have probably been using AI for a while. So for instance, using AI to study transcripts or behaviors from clients or activities from clients to know what's next best opportunity. Marketing's been using AI for a very long time, next best opportunity. So a lot of organizations have already been using AI in a way to understand the value of looking at that large data and breaking it down into more insights, if you will. So this next iteration then isn't for most, it isn't a brand new, we're going to do something brand new. Now, there are some companies out there, maybe smaller or mid-sized, that hadn't already invested. Maybe it is brand new. But when you think about what you're now doing for the agent assist, again, you're using some of that same power of studying mass information and contextualizing it in a way that makes an impact for that current interaction with the agent and giving them the help they need. And there's safety to that, right? That's where there's a lot of that opportunity to say, hey, I can do this, but I'm not going to potentially sacrifice, an experience directly with the customer. I'm going to be working with the agent. And here's the reality. You're now using that agent assist activity to cleanse the data on the back end so that it'll be ready for the customer when you're ready to pull that trigger. And so to me, it's part of this migration, if you will, to the new technology is taking it into pieces that you as an organization, your risk profile, your company, how much have you already cleansed your data, et cetera. Taking that opportunity to just start the process and working with the organizations to, like Kodif or others, work with organizations to really, take those initial steps. Because if you wait until everything's perfect and everything's solved, you'll be too late. Because again, it's not the technology that you have to worry as much about, in my opinion. The generative AI, that technology, is not as much to worry about that. It's what you're plugging into that technology that you really have to worry about. And that's where a lot of organizations are spending mass amounts of time right now, going back through all of the material that they have, all that information that they've created, because they know, once you shine a light on that using something like an agent assist tool, you're going to have to do some cleansing to get it up to snuff, if you will, or up to speed. And so it's really that opportunity for most organizations to take that step forward, and the opportunity really to do it as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, this is the time to do it, right? With all these generative AI advances and everyone's talking about it, right? And I'd love to hear your perspective. You said like at Charles Schwab, for example, it was not like a new technology, right? People were using some AI already, and now like there's definitely a lot of major advances from the generative AI side. So would love to hear like kind of how much of this is being built internally, because I know a lot of these like tech giants, like I've spoken to some of the largest Fortune 100 companies, right? Like Charles Schwab is kind of in there, and there's all these huge financial institutions like JP Morgan, others. JP Morgan told me they had over 400 AI people they hired internally, right? So where's the opportunity, you think, for partnering with startups versus like building technology internally? Would love to hear kind of your thoughts there, where startups can fit in, like Kodif.
Yeah, and I think in my career, the build versus buy question, it has come up for, honestly, decades. I could say that, really, because it goes back to your customer, your CRM tool. And uh, you can buy Salesforce and use it. You can build your own. And I've worked for a lot of companies that over the years they built their own, just to realize we're not CRM experts. So why are we building this? And then they go and they swap it out for a product that they can purchase. Because, and I look at that now as AI, is to say, I think these bigger organizations, they have more money, obviously they have more funding. They can go out and hire hundreds of, AI, programmers. But at the end of the day, that's not most companies. Most companies, they don't have the money to go out and hire that. And even then, I don't know that it's always the right decision to build it yourself, because I'm always more in the camp of buy. Companies like
Yeah.
Kodif, others that are out there, you guys are spending 100% of your time and energy making the product better. And
Yeah.
while I could potentially build something, I don't have the same ability to keep up with the trends or the modifications that need to happen. And at the end of the day, like I said, a lot of companies who think building is the right solution end up coming back later and being like, "Oh, this was a waste of money. We spent way too much. Let's buy." And then even worse, what I see is that those same companies who built and then they buy. This is a really weird one. They'll go in and they'll try to take the product they now bought and make it work like the one they built. Well, that may defeat the purpose completely. I mean, again, vendors, startups, and honestly, in generative AI, everybody's a startup right now. I mean, it's new technology, so it's a startup kind of a set of programs, and but it's taking that opportunity to let experts like yourself that are focused on this 100% of the time and leverage them to get you where you need to be. Because again, each of these companies, like we talked about in the last little segment, they got a lot of work to do on the back end to clean up the information, clean up the data, clean up what you're plugging that tool into. So, trying to do that while building something doesn't make a lot of sense for most. So I'm always a big fan. And like I said, looking at the kind of partners that have the future in mind, the trust of that future that they're going. So let me use an example. The unfortunate reality in a lot of, vendor and vendor tech is that there's kind of has to be somewhat narrow focus from the vendor perspective. And what I love about Kodif, you haven't gone in with those blinders on. So for instance, I talked to one company and they're like, all they do is agent assist. I talked to another company, all they do is self-help. I talk to another company, the companies that are starting themselves, they kind of have to pick a lane within a highway, to because that's what they have to define themselves. But if they too narrowly define, then as an organization, if I go out, I'm like, I may have to pick someone to do self-service and someone else to do agent assist and someone else maybe to connect it. What I love about Kodif, you are already doing that. I mean, it's all the same kind of technology, but you guys are leveraging those together. So for instance, you're doing self-service, you're doing kind of that RPA, robotic processing automation, as well as, chat and chat bots. But then when they click to talk, because maybe they couldn't get their issue resolved, then you're using, the agent can use the tools, but not only that, they can get that pop-up that says, hey, this is a summary of the chat they were just on in the self-service. Now that agent who's receiving it doesn't have to start from scratch. They're actually already living in context. So again, that's where when I talk to companies about picking vendors, narrow is okay, but too narrow, you end up having to pick multiple vendors. Whereas, someone who it has that thought process already and that strategy in place, you have such a better opportunity to touch on those. Because again, if I choose someone for agent assist, and then I later want to do chat GPT, if I haven't chosen someone like a Kodif, I have to go choose someone else to do the chat bot. And that's, nobody really wants to keep getting more and more vendors.
Yeah, and it gets complicated, right? And if you can just find a solution that works, that's kind of the goal, right? You want it to work. And I also loved your comments about kind of the cycle of innovation, right? It's like this happens in so many different industries and with so many different new technologies. It's like people say, okay, like let's test out generative AI, let's build it ourselves. And a lot of the best solutions, I think, will come from companies like us, where we're dedicated. I mean, we built this and scaled it globally for Uber, and started a trend like with our CTO, right? So we have these capabilities that we've done this, we've proven it. We are even in financial services, like the early adopters for us were like Trust Wallet and CoinMarketCap in the crypto space. And the crypto companies, I think they realized they needed this, and they were willing to take a risk with kind of like working on a startup, and it's worked incredibly well for them for self-service. And I'm excited. I think the financial services companies, they're more regulated, right? So they're more cautious, and in the end, it's going to be finding something that really works. That's going to be important for them. But yeah, would love to hear kind of like the future you see and the opportunities ahead, right? Because you even wrote this book, Four Rocks, right? So you've been thinking about this for a long time, and would love to hear kind of like the opportunity, I think, of kind of bringing this kind of innovation and automation technology kind of all together as well.
Yeah. So again, 20 plus years as CX across multiple industries and businesses. And, kind of what I just described, one of the things that I had to learn through that process, like most of us do, is, well, who can do what for me, and pick the different vendors. And when you really think about customer experience, I actually am starting to try to promote to say, stop putting a letter in front of the X. Customer experience, brand experience, employee experience, user experience. I mean, the more that you put a letter in front of X, the more silos you're building, even in understanding the experience. We already have silos in the business where you usually have someone who owns the call center, someone else owns the website, maybe someone else even owns the mobile app. And they all have their own priorities and often compete with each other, for that. And the more you put in front of the X, the more you're creating silos, even in understanding and analyzing the experience, because ultimately it's all about the experience. 80% of customers, and this came from Salesforce, 80% of customers say the experience they have with your organization is as important as the products or services you sell, which basically means you can't, bad experiences, no matter how great your products are, you're dead. You've got to focus on the experiences, and it's actually going up because the younger generations, it's not really about buying a product. It's about the experience that product enables, whatever. That's their mindset. It's all about the experience. And so the more that we segment that, the harder it is. And so started to realize that, it used to be relatively straightforward. I call and I get my service. I go online, I get some work done or some self-help. But with all of the expanse of the new technology and communication channels over the last decade, phone, chat, chat bots, SMS, text messaging, social media communication, I mean, any number of proprietary solutions, the way we interact with clients is growing exponentially. In fact, you know, 28% of customers, I'm sorry, no, 65% of customers use up to 6 different channels to communicate with the company they work with. So customers are now all over the place trying these things. And what I realized was the more we put and the complexity we put, the more that it creates challenges in that communication. We've gotten pretty good at channel and task. The challenge most is when I go from different channels because my issue is not resolved. And so I equate that. I'm here in Colorado. I equate it to a river. You know, there's plenty of these rivers up in the mountains, and you go through and they're winding around like crazy, and you know, got rapids and stuff like that. And so people spend some good money to go whitewater rafting in Colorado. Well, the reality is we'd like to think in business, our customer journey is a nice, straight, easy flow. You know, maybe the customer's on an inner tube with a cold one and they're having just a wonderful day because it's a nice, easy thing. Well, the reality is no, they're bouncing off the rocks. They're bouncing off the walls. They're moving back and forth because the journey has become harder because of the new channels and the lack of connection. So going back to what I mentioned earlier about your company thinking ahead, it's about connecting the two channels. If I'm on chat and now I have to interact with an agent, putting those pieces together and connecting them, because that's what the customers require. A seamless integration of different technologies and people. I also wholeheartedly feel like the more technology we throw at customers, the more they're going to want to talk to someone, especially when things are hard. And so this idea that we're going to self-serve everything and we won't have to have call centers, no, I fully disagree. I think now is the time to invest in the contact center to create a more value proposition of the call center than just the cost that it's always been. Because now with AI, with Agent Assist, you can easily help an agent, even a not perfectly trained agent, resolve the issue, and you know, but then also next best opportunity or next best action, you know, to really help it. Use that AI and Agent Assist to actually help them become more value oriented and more contextualized for that customer. Use the AI to actually personalize. I heard an interesting word the other day: situationalize. It's like personalize and situation. So it's basically take it to the next level. It's personalized for you, and now it's also relevant to the current situation that you're dealing with. And that's where, you know, that's where this technology is going. And the plug for the book, though, is I talk about the rocks in our business being what creates those challenges. And so if we want to, you know, we want to reduce effort, we want to transform the journey to be more seamless, that will increase loyalty, because what the data shows, it used to be 4 times, but it's now, if someone says something's hard to do, they're 5 times more likely to be disloyal now. And that is growing. Like I said, it used to be 4 times, it's 5 times. It will be 6, because the experience drives now our consumption as a customer. And your last best experience is now, you know, your minimum expectation for everybody else. And so no matter if someone gets it right using the cell phone and the smartphone, the expectation now is that everybody is going to get it right immediately, because if someone could do it, someone else can as well. So again, it's just really that opportunity of saying the journey is about connecting the customer and the journey, and ultimately the employee at that point, connecting them seamlessly versus chasing new technology without the consideration of how does it fit with everything else.
Exactly. Yeah, I like the point you talked about where people are always going to want to call in, right? Like to speak to a person. And that's why at Kodif, like we don't just want to do self-service, right? Like we want to work directly with the customer experience teams, with the call centers, and also enable them with our technology, because people also want that human touch as well. I think combining like some automation and then also providing that is a good opportunity. And that's what we believe in at Kodif. And I do think there's a lot of crazy predictions, right? Like about CX, like it's just going to be fully automated, like in the next like 5 years, right? It's just going to be, you can't talk to a human, or like it's going to be fully like generative AI chatbots or kind of voice enabled communication. And I know you've spent a lot of time within call centers, customer experience. Would love to hear your kind of predictions, like in the future, like in 5 years from now, where is this technology going to be, and what is kind of like the ultimate like customer experience going to be?
Yeah, so I was asked that question 2 summers ago. So summer of 22, I was on a panel. And there's what's it going to look like in 5 years? And this was, of course, before ChatGPT even came out, like later that year. And I was like, well, in 5 years, you're going to be interacting with a company, and the person on the receiving end is there focused on having a conversation with you, creating empathy opportunities, et cetera. And as they're having that conversation with you, the work is being done through automated means. So, AI is listening to the conversation. And, if going back to financial services, if I, as a customer say, or a client say, I want to sell 10,000 shares of Amazon, it's going to plug in on the screen 5,000 shares of Amazon sell. The agent's going to be making sure that it's plugged in right, that they didn't mishear it, but they're focused on having that relationship, that merger of human and technology. I mean, just think about what that looks like. The technology is listening and reacting to the conversation as it's going. The human is focused on the empathy and that relationship. It's basically the best of both worlds. Because you're bringing those components together. You're using self-service at the same time that you're using agent service and then agent assist, so that it's that opportunity to just make things as easy as possible in that validation. And I also, when talking to folks about that, in call centers, think about how much easier it is to train. A lot of times, we struggle with staffing in call centers because it's a hard job. It's one of the hardest jobs out there, honestly. And because usually a current person is trying to have a good relationship and empathetic conversation, but they're having to manage 15 different screens and bounce around and remember everything, from their training. Well, when you integrate that with the AI technology, it's going to be, automated work in combination with that. Now, like I said that would be 5 years from now, almost a year and a half ago. And then ChatGPT came out. I'm like, all right, that's 2 years out at most. I don't know what 5 years is going to be like. The next several years, though, these are the types of things that will be happening. And companies that take an approach that is only about reducing cost, they're going to miss out. They may
Yeah.
save some money in the long run, but they'll lose reputation. I mean, there are some companies I work with now that, as a customer, that they either hide the phone number so well, or they don't have one. And when you have an issue, and yeah, I'm a Gen Xer, but I want to talk to somebody, but I want them to know what's already happening before, when they answer the phone. Or even more, I want to call into the IVR, that phone tree. I want
Yeah.
it to already know, hey, this guy's already called twice about this issue. Let's bypass and get him right to a specialty group, because obviously the front line's not working. Let's get him to an escalation group. And so it's that foresight of using the technology to enhance both the experience, but also the relationship. And if all you try to do is self-serve, get rid of agents, I think you're going to end up in a really bad place. I mean, think about all these airlines that, when COVID hit, they let they furloughed or let people go, and they fired them. After COVID opened back up, they struggled to be able to get pilots, because they were short-sighted. And I don't want that to happen with organizations as they go into AI. Is don't think of it as that short-sighted, let's reduce cost. Flip it and say, all right, how can we use this? Maybe there is some reduction in cost by lowering handle time or making things easier, but also use it to add value, to, provide next best opportunity, next best option, potentially upsell, cross-sell, turn that contact center into a value driver for your organization.
Yeah, and I think it's such a important time, right, in the evolution of CX, because I think, like, from my perspective, like, it's like at Kodif and some other startups can provide this as well, like, but for on our side, like, we're gonna reduce cost, we're gonna improve customer experience, and we're gonna make your agents happier. So I think these are three, like, it's never been done before, where it's like, before it was like, okay, we're going to save you some costs and maybe the customer experience will go down. I believe that we provide all three, and we've proven that with our
Yeah.
customers, where the agents don't like to deal also like with these heavily transactional requests. So I think these ones will get automated, and then the deeper kind of connections that you have to have, where you kind of need to understand more nuanced or act more consultatively with the customer, these things are not going to be easily replaced, right? So would love kind of your thoughts, kind of like from your experience on that, whereas like, what are the drivers for a lot of these companies that you work with, whether it's these huge financial institutions, like, do they want all these things? Are they heavily focused on cost, or what are kind of the drivers for working with like startups and new innovations?
Yeah, when that's hard to say, it's different by company, and it's primarily driven by who is focused on the decision, who's focused on making this decision about what kind of technology to leverage. I mean, if you step back and you ask someone, wouldn't you want one to, like, your three checkbox, reduce costs, improve employee morale, improve customer experience. You're like, yes, I want all three of those. But when push comes to shove, someone's got to make a decision on what to fund and what to buy. So most of the time, if within the business, I'm talking mostly to the contact center leadership, the focus is often a little bit too narrowly on, I got to get calls out of the call center because I've got to reduce cost. And they almost blindly focus on that one component. If that's the case, talking to marketing or someone, if they're the ones leading the charge, if you will, then it's about increased value, next best, sales opportunity. It's about, adding to the funnel, if you will. So if your CX is being driven, or your X is being driven by more of a marketing perspective, it's going to have that different view. The challenge, and this goes back to my history, I spent time running CX and analyzing CX in all those different departments. They all think and act extremely differently when it comes to this opportunity. Now, the good news is a company like yours can get in with one of those use cases, but then show how easily it is to add, hey, let's add to this as well. So, it's up to us, though, within business to really have that open mind of what can be, and not get too focused on that. Because if we chase the new technology for, just a very narrow focus on the short term, or I guess the key would be, don't stay with that focus long term. That short term, that's okay. Get into technology with one use case, but be open to expanding that, as you can and as quickly as you can. And that's where, the challenge kind of comes, is to say, you've got to get everybody at organizations and across organizations involved in this decision, because everybody's going to use it differently and have a different focus. And so I think that's where it really kind of comes down to who's got the money, right? That inevitably, that's where, it all comes down to in business, is who's got the money that they can afford to do something. And the more, if the money is owned by a group that's looking at a broader, use case and aspect and more value, then you're going to see that in those organizations. The companies with kind of the blinders on, with too narrow of a focus, they may not benefit as quickly.
Yeah, for sure. It's always the reality of what it comes down to. But I would also love to touch on, you said something interesting earlier about like training as well, right? And I think that's another use case. It's like, we're seeing a lot of agents within like the companies we work with, they're using ChatGPT anyways, right? Like let's say they're responding to chats or emails, they're actually going and like typing in responses on ChatGPT, which is obviously not safe, like for their data. They're exposing it outside of the company. So that's kind of like our vision at Kodif, is like, we want to do this in a safe and compliant manner, so we can take these inquiries and allow these agents to like ask like a ChatGPT like question, and then just boom, okay, this is how you give a refund, or this is how you do that. Because one of the things in terms of like morale in the business is like the managers also don't like constantly answering the same question. Like they hire some new agents and then like, okay, I thought I told you this like 3 times, and right. So this is giving that ability to make the managers happier and for the agents to get access to real time kind of like responses. So would love to hear your thoughts on like the training for within like that you dealt with, right? Like was this a major pain point like from your experience, or would love to hear kind of your thoughts from the companies you've worked with.
Absolutely. I a unique opportunity that I joined an internet company within 6 months of product launch. And when I started, we had 25, call them super agents. Basically, we had 25 people. They knew how to do everything. And over the next couple of years, we grew to 600 very quickly, and then beyond that. And by doing that, we had to break it into, okay, now that here's the sales team, here's the service team, here's the tech team, and you create the silos, because it's too hard to get someone to understand the breadth of everything. So you have to focus them on, all right, you are a tech support agent, you are a service agent, billing, blah, blah, blah. And that's, there's always been this conversation for the last 20 some odd years about, man, it'd be best if we could just have super agents who know everything, because then customers don't have to be transferred. I mean, one of the worst experiences we have is getting bounced, getting bounced around in channel. If I would try online or the app or chatbot or chat, and then I have to call. Even worse, now I'm transferred from one agent to another agent because I hit the wrong button and in the wrong queue. And so this new age, the ability to, oh, and by the way, training one of those agents for just one of those roles is like 6 to 8 weeks, and then probably like another 4-week follow-up, to continue their improvement. So you're investing so much into, these agents to hire, and they're only learning one skill. Think about now in the environment where, using tools like Agent Assist and the ability to hear, understand, and make recommendations, without having to, know it or search for it, and do it in a way that's using like generative, that's actually in a summary level. Here's how you need to explain it. Here's how you need to talk about it, versus the 100-step process. Then you don't have to invest nearly as much training, and that agent can do a lot more because you're assisting them to do all of the work. And so now think about the experience that creates. No, not nearly the number of transfers you have to go through, not nearly the upfront cost of training, more satisfaction from the employee to that extent of being able to say, understand and know I'm taken care of by my company and by my tools, not I have to deal with my tools as a negative. And it becomes this, as you described, this checkbox kind of opportunity. And that's ultimately, will change the landscape of customer service within the experience. Being able to leverage and, again, not have to worry as a consumer about bouncing to the wrong department or things of that nature. Now, it'll take us some time to get there. I mean, that's, again, it goes back to you got to build the muscle. You got to, really that's more advanced thinking, but we're not that far off. I mean, the capability is now. And there's already AI programs you can use for training. There's, I was at a conference earlier, I think it was in August, and I was in the room with all the exhibitors and everything. I'm like, okay, you use AI for this purpose and you use AI for this purpose. And, it was like, it's so many capabilities across that room, everybody doing something different. Put it all together. That's the future. It'll all be, part of that package, and having that, that opportunity to think that way is key.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, no, I think it's been a really good discussion, Sean. And yeah, I could chat forever. But yeah, I think we're running up on time. Maybe can you give the audience like any closing thoughts or ability, or like how can they buy your book? I see obviously 4 rocks in the background. So yeah, would love any kind of closing thoughts you have, or yeah, how can they reach out to you or get access to your book?
Absolutely. Well, I'm a professional speaker. I do keynotes for conferences, corporate conferences, or industry conferences. I do workshops, 1, 2, or 3 day workshops. And then I do consulting and coaching as well. My book, 4 Rocks, you can find it on Amazon, just number 4 Rocks. And then my website, cx4rocks.com. So cx number 4 rocks.com. You can connect with me there. We can, you can see some of my material and information and link to my book from there as well. So it was great, Mike. So thanks so much for having me. It was a great conversation. I agree. We could probably go for 3 hours. Yeah, I'm so happy to be able to talk about this and work with Kodif in this way. So.
Yeah, likewise. It's great to have you on board as an advisor of ours, and it's been great you're having your support as well. So yeah, thanks again for your time today, and anyone that's interested in connecting with Sean, please reach out, or we're happy to connect on the Kodif side as well. All right, thanks everyone.